is there a way for me to eat meat where I don't have any of the immoral problems? One of the things to consider is, what's the impact on humans if I stop eating meat?
So for instance, eating the agricultural industry,
Farmers, ranchers, truckers, all of them lose business.
It's also...
And that contributes to the greater good of humans.
What do you think contributes more to the greater good of humans? Either making sure those people keep their jobs or combating climate change?
Oh, well, now we've jumped into another realm.
The reason I ask is because the agricultural industry is the single biggest contributor to climate change.
Yes.
Far more than travel and things like that, all put together.
We always have in front of these guys 300 gallons of water. Across the way, we keep almost 400 gallons, and we do so down the other farm. We have a truck that's dedicated solely with a tank on it, filling it with water, and that's part of our daily routine.
There's about 319 million people living in the US, and the average American eats about 71 pounds of red meat and 54 pounds of poultry per year. Multiply that by America's population, and it will total 22.65 billion pounds of red meat and 17.23 billion pounds of poultry. Meat production requires more water than fruits, vegetables, or grains per pound. For example, 1 pound of beef requires 1,800 gallons of water, while 1 pound of wheat requires about 200 gallons of water.
So
those animals aren't going to go away when we stop eating them.
Well, yes, they are. I mean, once the demand... So there are currently unthinkable numbers of animals that are specifically being bred to be tortured and slaughtered. If the demand goes down, then they simply just won't be born anymore. And so the animals aren't going to go extinct.
So maybe the better solution is to do like a Thanos snap and eliminate half the human beings.
If you just kill half of the people on the planet, that's not good for human well-being.
See, and I'm not convinced we have an overpopulation crisis.
Okay, but even if we don't, you could say that one way to combat climate change would be to cut the population in half. Well, sure, another way to combat climate change would be
driving cars.
Would be to stop driving cars. But an even better way than both those things probably put together is to stop eating meat. And in fact, I think the single biggest thing that you can do as an individual to combat your personal, ecological footprint is to stop eating meat.
Raising livestock takes up a huge amount of water because we need to produce massive amounts of feed. Producing feed for animals not only takes up a lot of water to produce, but it takes up land that can be used to grow crops for humans. Cattle raised for meat consume equal to the caloric need of 8.7 billion people, more than the current population of 7 billion.
And if that's the case, then not only do we now have a situation where there is the whole argument of the ethical worth of animals, and that's one thing. You've now got this entirely separate argument about the environmentalism and how that's going to affect you and future generations.
So one of the things, and this is not... So first of all, having been presented with this before, I'm not even disagreeing with you on the impact and the way to change it. But the truth of the matter is, I think my objection here isn't even on moral grounds. It's on a matter of practicality.
Okay.
Because we know the overwhelming majority of people aren't going to take this step. And so an individual taking this step isn't going to contribute in.
Yeah, but you can say the same thing about voting. I
would probably be a more moral person and probably be doing more for the world if I just stopped eating meat. Never remotely denied that. The thing is, the factors that would keep me eating meat under some circumstance, not all, have so far outweighed the factors that would make me stop.
And what are those factors, if you had to whittle them down?
Whittling them down is kind of difficult.
Raising animals for food also produces massive amounts of waste, approximately 130 times more than the entire human population. Farms which raise animals are also responsible for polluting our waterways with animal waste, pesticides, chemicals, fertilizers, hormones, and antibiotics. This is more than all other industrial sources combined.
So the climate change argument, by the way, is the strongest one of all of them for me personally. When other people presented this about, the impact of this, I'm like, yeah,
Right.
that's an issue. And if that's the case and I have accurate information, then yep, on board. But that's a separate issue from the types of moral arguments that I'm often presented with, which is, oh, don't kill the poor animals. Is there a way for me to eat meat where I don't have any of the immoral problem?
Like
Veganism.
people would just think that you just don't care enough
Yeah.
about animals.
And they could be right.
Dun, 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 dun.